The story begins in 1969 in Pasadena, California. A desperate couple rushes into the office of a spiritual medium, Sean Sandene, holding their frightened young son. The boy, terrified and trembling, claims he is being chased by something invisible. He and his parents plead for help, explaining that he stole a silver necklace from a Romani traveler and has been cursed ever since. Sandina quickly realizes the severity of the situation. She lays the boy down on a sacred cloth, chanting prayers to summon protective spirits. Suddenly, a loud thumping echoes through the room. The boy clutches his ears, screaming in pain. Objects rattle and the floor shakes violently. The shadows in the room come alive, swirling in dark tendrils. Before anyone can react, the boy is forcefully dragged across the floor by an unseen force. His fingers claw at the wooden planks, but the power is too strong. With one final shriek, he is pulled into the depths of the underworld, vanishing into the flames below. Sandena watches in horror, vowing to one day defeat the demonic entity responsible. The screen fades to black and the title, Drag Me to Hell, appears in bold, ominous letters. Decades later, Christine Brown, a young and ambitious loan officer in Los Angeles, is determined to secure a promotion at her bank. She works hard, hoping to impress her boss, Mr. Jacks, and prove she is capable of handling tough decisions. However, she faces stiff competition from her coworker, Stu Rubin, who constantly undermines her efforts. Christine's boyfriend, Clay Dalton, is a supportive and intelligent professor from a wealthy family. Though he loves Christine, his mother disapproves of their relationship, believing Christine isn't good enough for her son. Despite this, Clay reassures Christine that she shouldn't worry about winning his mother's approval. Christine's day at work is routine, until Mr. Jacks hints that the promotion will go to someone who can make firm, unsentimental decisions. She realizes she must prove she can be tough, even if it means making hard choices. Her opportunity comes when an elderly woman, Sylvia Ganush, enters the bank. The frail woman, with a cloudy eye and worn clothes, pleads for an extension on her mortgage. She explains that she has already received 2 extensions and is on the verge of losing her home. Christine hesitates, feeling sympathy for the woman, but ultimately decides to deny the request in order to impress Mr. Jacks. As Christine firmly states her decision, Mrs. Ganush, distressed and desperate, falls to her knees and begs. She clutches Christine's hands, pleading for mercy. The other employees watch uncomfortably as the elderly woman cries, but Christine stands firm. Seeing no other choice, Mrs. Ganush is escorted out by security. Later that evening, as Christine heads to her car in the bank's dimly lit parking garage, she senses something is off. The air feels heavy and shadows stretch unnaturally. As she reaches her vehicle, she sees an old handkerchief fluttering in the air. The parking lot is eerily silent. Without warning, Mrs. Ganush emerges from the shadows. Her face is twisted with anger and betrayal. Christine gasps as the old woman lunges at her, pulling her out of the car. A fierce struggle ensues. Mrs. Ganush's strength is unnatural for someone her age, and she fights with a terrifying ferocity. The battle is violent. Christine manages to fight back, using whatever she can, but Mrs. Ganush refuses to relent. Finally, Christine grabs a stapler from her bag and drives a staple into Mrs. Ganush's forehead. The old woman stumbles back, dazed. Christine rushes into her car and locks the doors, thinking she's safe, but Mrs. Ganush suddenly appears outside, smashing the window with a brick. She reaches in, pulling out a button from Christine's coat. Holding it tightly, she mutters an eerie incantation before vanishing into the darkness. That night, Christine tries to shake off the terrifying encounter. She tells Clay about the attack, but he brushes it off as an assault by an unstable woman. However, Christine can't shake the unease creeping over her. Something about the way Mrs. Ganush whispered over her button lingers in her mind. As she sleeps, she experiences a disturbing nightmare. Dark shapes swirl around her, and shadowy hands reach out, grasping at her limbs. A deep, guttural voice echoes in the darkness, speaking in a language she doesn't understand. She wakes up in a cold sweat, her room unnaturally silent. Frightened and desperate for answers, Christine visits a psychic named Ramjas. The young mystic studies her aura and immediately senses a dark presence surrounding her. He tells her that she has been cursed by the Lamia, a powerful demon that torments its victims for 3 days before dragging them to hell. Christine is horrified, realizing that Mrs. Ganush's words weren't empty threats, they were a death sentence. That night, Christine's fear turns into full-blown terror. As she lies in bed, the shadows in her room shift and twist. The walls creak and the wind howls outside her window. Then, a loud bang shakes the house. Christine sits up, her breath quick and shallow. She hears heavy footsteps approaching her bedroom door, slow and deliberate. The door bursts open, but no one is there. An invisible force lifts Christine off the bed and hurls her to the ground. She screams, scrambling to her feet. The chandelier above swings wildly, casting eerie shadows across the room. Christine grabs a lamp and holds it defensively, but there's nothing to fight, only a cold, suffocating presence. She runs to Ramjas again, pleading for help. The psychic warns her that the Lamia is growing stronger and that she must find a way to break the curse before it's too late. He suggests an animal sacrifice as a potential solution. Desperate and terrified, Christine considers it. The unseen tormentor continues its relentless assault, each encounter worse than the last. Christine feels herself slipping into madness. She knows time is running out. As she walks home, another violent attack from the unseen force pushes her over the edge. That night, alone in her house, Christine prepares herself. Her beloved kitten meows from the corner, unaware of the danger. Tears stream down her face as she wrestles with the decision. Trembling, she does what she believes is necessary, whispering an apology. The house falls eerily silent afterward. Christine hopes she has satisfied the Lamia. However, her relief is short-lived. Later that night, Christine is awakened by a sinister whisper. The shadows on her walls twist and stretch unnaturally. A powerful force slams her against the ceiling before dropping her onto the bed. The sacrifice didn't work. The demon is still coming for her. The next morning, Christine tells Clay everything. Though skeptical, he agrees to take her to see Sean Sandena, the same medium from the opening scene, now much older but still powerful. If anyone can stop the curse, it's her. Christine and Clay arrive at Sean Sandena's home, where a seance is prepared. The medium explains that they must summon the Lamia into a host body, which will allow them to trap and defeat it. Christine, terrified but out of options, agrees to participate. As the ritual begins, the candles flicker violently. A powerful wind rushes through the room, rattling furniture. Christine's body stiffens as the presence of the demon fills the space. A deep, otherworldly growl echoes, and suddenly, an unseen force slams Sean Sandena's assistant into the wall. The spirit moves wildly, possessing different objects. Then, the possessed spirit enters Sean Sandena's frail body. Her eyes roll back and she begins to cackle, her voice mixing with the demon's monstrous growl. The group struggles to contain the entity. Sean Sandena, using all her strength, attempts to banish it. Finally, she forces the demon into a goat, which thrashes violently. One of the assistants, overcome with fear, loses control. The goat bites him, and suddenly he becomes possessed, laughing maniacally and floating in the air. He taunts Christine, whispering her worst fears, before finally collapsing. The spirit momentarily weakens, and Sean Sandena gathers the last of her energy to push it away. The room stills. Christine, exhausted and shaken, believes she is finally free, but Sean Sandena warns her it was only a temporary victory. The demon is still after her. Determined to end this nightmare, Christine consults Ram Dass one last time. He offers another solution. If Christine can give the cursed button to someone else, the curse will transfer to them. But there's a catch. It must be a living person who accepts the gift willingly. Christine debates her choices. She considers giving it to Stu, the coworker who has sabotaged her chances of promotion. She even eyes a stranger at a diner, but her conscience won't let her go through with it. She doesn't want to doom an innocent soul. Desperate, she realizes she can give the button to the person responsible, Mrs. Ganush. But there's one problem. Mrs. Ganush is dead. Christine rushes to the cemetery in the dead of night, determined to dig up the old woman's grave and return the cursed button to her lifeless body. As she digs, rain pours heavily, turning the ground into thick mud. The deeper she digs, the harder it gets. Her hands tremble as she finally pries open the coffin. Mrs. Ganush's corpse, bloated and decayed, lies before her. Holding back her revulsion, Christine forces the envelope containing the cursed button into the corpse's mouth. The old woman's lips curl into a grotesque smile as the rainwater fills the grave. Christine, exhausted and drenched, laughs with relief. The nightmare is finally over. The next morning, Christine wakes up feeling light and free for the first time in days. The sky looks brighter, and the world no longer feels so heavy. She buys a new outfit, eager to start fresh. When she arrives at the train station, Clay meets her with a smile, telling her he has a surprise. He's bought them a trip to celebrate her overcoming everything. As they wait for the train, Clay mentions something that makes Christine freeze. He has the envelope she gave him last night. He had picked it up when she dropped it. Christine's blood turns to ice. The envelope he holds contains a regular coin, not the cursed button. Christine's face pales. Her breath quickens. The realization crashes over her like a tidal wave. She never passed on the curse. She gave the wrong envelope to Mrs. Ganush. The Lamia still owns her soul. Clay watches in confusion as Christine stumbles backward onto the tracks. The ground beneath her shakes. The train's horn blares as it approaches, but Christine is fixated on something else. The wooden planks crack, and suddenly, demonic hands burst from the earth. Christine lets out a final, terrified scream as the Lamia's hands grab her ankles. Clay, horrified, reaches out, but it's too late. Christine's nails dig into the ground as she fights to hold on. The force is too strong. Her body is yanked downward, and in an instant she is swallowed by the fiery abyss below. Clay falls to his knees, staring in shock at the empty space where Christine once stood. The train rushes past. but nothing remains of her, only her coat, fluttering in the wind. The camera lingers on Clay's devastated face before fading to black. The credits roll, leaving the audience with the chilling realization that Christine's fate was sealed from the moment she denied Mrs. Ganush's plea for help. To enjoy more thrilling recaps like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the hidden truths in every story.